I spoke to it's kind of an M&A advisory business who are very entrenched in the technology space, like more like small to mid cap type stuff. But they had said any product that sits in the office of the CFO is highly desirable. So I think, the CFO is still going to be in way more at the front of any hiring and any deals and any purchases. So I think that's, should affect people's decisions around like what they're selling and where they work, but those kinds of products are selling well. It's a slight tangent from what we were talking about in terms of just, lowballing, but I think that the CFO is king at the moment still, especially for bigger companies once you've probably passed Series A.
Hey, this is Gareth Webb and you're listening to Breakout, a show that cuts through the hiring noise. Here, you'll get an unfiltered view on what early and growth stage companies are doing so that you can take their best practices, processes and frameworks and implement them to help you build teams more confidently.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Breakout Podcast. We're mixing things up a little this year with some slightly different formats and agendas. Today, I'm joined by OutScout's very own Dan Jackson. Dan is our Director of Client Engagement and Investor Partnerships. Dan, how are you doing? Thank you for joining.
Yeah, good, thanks. Thank you.
I figured just to explain to people why we're doing this. So, we normally talk to customers or clients or tech professionals or people leadership professionals, kind of obviously more in line with technology and hiring. But given everything that's happened in the last couple of years and the yo-yoing market, that is the tech hiring market and the tech employment market, I thought it'd be useful for you and I to sit down every 3 months or so. And this one's going to land summertime, mid-year. So we'll kind of call this a state of hiring kind of mid-year review, I guess. But I thought it made sense that we sit down and discuss some of the things we're seeing. You spend pretty much all of your job talking to hiring companies and hiring executives and founders. Myself, the same. I think a lot of the information we get is unfiltered and doesn't go out into the world, and everybody can find stuff that's very filtered and is like searchable through the internet and various sources. But there's a lot of things that you and I can discuss that people might find insightful, which is obviously why we're here. And I think also, we're well positioned to make an educated guess about what might happen in the next 3-6 months, if at all different. So, but yeah, I think that's what we sort of sit down and discuss. Do you want to just give a bit of your background so anybody that hasn't heard this and anybody that doesn't know you now does know you?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my name's Dan and I've been with OutScout for a year now. I've had 10 years in recruitment from a larger company before OutScout and about 20 years in sales beforehand. So you can tell by my accent that I'm not a native, but I'm from New Zealand. And enjoying my time reaching out to the market. A little bit different from what I was doing. Mainly I was doing recruitment, running a team, but now I'm just all business development.
Yeah, very good. And I think, you've worked a few different industries, right? Like predominantly financial services in London and then technology, full technology in the US, finance and ops, go to market predominantly into the Silicon Valley landscape when you were Robert Walters.
That's right. Right? A complete change from the rat race in London, from accountants and finance folk down to Canary Wharf into the tech world in Silicon Valley, San Francisco and the rest of the US. So a big move, but it was a great move.
The world has changed. You don't need to wear a tie anymore. You don't need to go to the office anymore. You don't need to shave anymore, evidently. So the world has changed, hopefully for the better in most respects. Well, good. Let's kind of get into this. Anybody that is on the West Coast wants to talk to OutScout, Dan is your person. He's up in Seattle. So just connect on LinkedIn and feel free to book in a conversation with him if you want to learn a bit more about OutScout and our offering and what we do. I think let's just talk about like the key hiring data points for this year so far, like what we've seen, what we know to be the case from other data sources. I think we've mentioned this a lot internally, and it seems to be, what the LinkedIn chatter is that, just a quick pulse check on the market is that, post 2022, 23, which was the SaaS depression, the sales and go-to-market has been consistently strong as a demand for getting top talent in across all different levels and functions. But tell me what you've seen, what you've heard from people that you know and customers that you're talking to.
Yeah, I think that's a a good assessment to make in regards to go-to-market. I think the three areas that we cover across G&A, R&D, and go-to-market, the sales and marketing teams had an increase for hiring, mainly at the junior level for account executives, and then moving into more product marketing and a couple of demand gen roles as well. I think R&D is always going to be strong, and sales and marketing have taken over this year.
Yeah, I think it's just comes down to a lot of things, right? But obviously, without revenue, people die, companies die. You can have the best marketing team, marketing engine in the world, but you never really know like what you might get as a result of that. Whereas you have a team of 5, 10 AEs, and you start to get revenue from that engine, you know with a bit more confidence that you're likely going to get a more stable revenue growth, a revenue engine. SDRs, we don't touch SDRs really. It's too junior. It's not something we do, but like I get the sense it's not died a death, but it's definitely slowed down a lot. It's a model that's under scrutiny. Would you agree?
I think so, yeah. And going back to your point with the account executives, you've seen multiple hires at the one company, not just hiring one or two, but they really need good performers, 2 or 3, and then we'll pay top dollar to have these account executives join their team. So that's been an increase that we've seen over the last 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think there's been, AEs at any level, if they're junior and they produced, then there's good ROI. If they're very senior, very expensive, but they can pull in, several $1 million a year, then it's money well spent. I think there's also been this demand for actually building a better sales engine, a leaner sales engine, less of this VP, CRO, VP, director, AE model, but just flat AEs reporting into maybe a VP or CRO. But also it's not just about rebuilding. I think there's just lots of critical assessment of if you're not a producer, you're out and you get replaced with a really high performer. It's very brutal, doesn't get really talked about, but everyone knows it goes on. So I think that there's a hell of a lot that's been going on in the last 2 years. What about just in terms of, we touched on it, in terms of senior exec go-to-market hiring, what's the change you've seen since the end of the good market, the really shitty 2-year market, to now mid-2024? What have you seen at that kind of leadership level in terms of adjustments?
There's it's gone back to a lot of hiring like it was in, pre-21. The go-to-market teams have been hit hard the last 2 years, and now they're regathering their thoughts and thinking, hey, we need to hire senior leaders. There's been quite a few movers across that VP and C level, across from larger, well-known companies who have done well or have IPO'd into the smaller startups where we focus. So good leadership and bringing some of their team. And as we already alluded to, some of the marketers are bringing their sales team and their marketing team across with them as well. So we're seeing a lot of that.
In terms of the types of profiles people are wanting to hire, what would you say? I think in general, this market now is very much the buyer market still. Good candidates have a lot of choice, but the buyer obviously gets to say yes or no, and they're expecting a lot more. But in terms of the personality type they want, we all know there's smart people and there's people that can execute or not, and those things can be sort of assessed. But from what you're hearing from customers, is there anything particular about what's different around the profile or the personality they're hiring for? Are they taking a punt, or are they typically leveling up, or do they want people that have done it time and time again? Is there anything really different from 2 years ago, do you think, or is it more just the flattening of the org?
To be honest, I think they're going back to good education, good tenure, 2 or 3 years in each role. They want to see growth. They want to see promotions within different positions that they've been in. A few, maybe 20% of our clients will take a punt, maybe because they took a punt on themselves earlier on in their career and made it work. But unfortunately, with what's happened the last 2 years, you'll get quite a few jumpy resumes. So having our talent partners explain that to our clients to make sure we know exactly what they were doing or why they got laid off, then if the client's open to it and taking the punt, then, they'll produce a really good candidate to hire. Taking a punt on someone's career, it really makes sure that our talent partners know everything about them before we present them as well. So there's no red flags or nothing comes up right at the last minute. So making sure that everyone's on the same page when they hire them.
Just a deep dive really on all, and you're saying essentially success like critical signals of success. So like we talk about this a lot, but like you're saying tenure, evidence of promotion, good academic pedigree, doesn't necessarily have to be Ivy Leaguers, but folks that have invested in themselves and had a good solid trajectory. I think we have seen this, right, where clients interview quite a lot of people who fit a spec and they fit the profile that they tell us they want to hire. All of a sudden, we might show them a shining star that is more senior. I won't say a client, but we had an example recently of a product marketing hire where they were interviewing. They had good candidates. We showed them somebody slightly out of budget, more senior, who had been through a number of kind of exciting exits, well-timed ones, but had done great work. That was all of a sudden the process was half the time, the offer came out bigger than expected and the hire was made. Like, do you think that's what a lot of people would love to do? They've just been too scared to kind of put budget to these hires and they're trying to do more with less, and then sometimes it just doesn't work.
Yeah. I mean, I think in that case, you go back to a solid marketing leader who's made those decisions and actually has a bit of pull with the board or the founders, and to increase someone's salary or to give them a better work-life balance or to offer them location or something, then yeah, I think that's case by case. If all the clients I spoke with could offer more benefits or options or anything in regards to bringing someone on, then yeah, they'd put their hand up. I think there's budget constraints, especially around this time of year. Well, actually this time of year, everything should be out. So yeah, it should be a good market now, and you should be able to offer the candidates more, if that's what I'm saying.
Well, I guess, like it's all things, right? It's they're halfway through the year, roughly. We're just past the halfway point for most companies. It's where are you against budget? And if you're ahead of budget and cash flow is good and all key indicators are, flashing green, then you can probably push things. If not, then you have to. I mean, my big gripe, I think, is if you're trying to do too much with too little in terms of hiring, you shouldn't bother at all, really. Like, it's just, causes more problems for everybody and uses up too much time. I think that's my take. It's like, if you're trying to be cheeky and you're going to lowball, then that will just cause more problems and just some embarrassment. Yeah, it's wasting a lot of valuable time.
We're still seeing lowballing, but, maybe not our clients, because, we vet our clients before we bring them on board. But, in the market, there's still candidates being lowballed, like 10, 20, 30%. And I see it on LinkedIn all the time in regards to my, London colleague, ex-London colleagues that, they're having trouble closing deals because of counter offers and lowballing. So I think the US market is a lot different, where good candidates expect to get paid, and that's very transparent from day dot when they have that conversation with the client. So shouldn't come across that too much.
No, I think I'd say I don't want to be too protective of some of our clients. I think there's still lowballing going on, and there's still companies out there trying to, the whole thing about not everyone's baby is the best looking baby. Some people have ugly babies, but it's their baby. So we're trying to show people data points and comparisons, but I still think, there's still like the sense that people can lowball because of the market the way it was last year, but it's definitely not that way this year. I spoke to kind of an M&A advisory business who are very entrenched in the technology space, like more like small to mid cap type stuff. But they had said any product that sits in the office of the CFO is highly desirable. The CFO is scrutinizing every purchase. They are approving POs. They are allocating budget. They're looking at teams. They're looking at hires. So I think, the CFO is still going to be in way more at the front of any hiring and any deals and any purchases. So I think that's, should affect people's decisions around like where they work, but it also should, like what they're selling and where they work. But those kinds of products are selling well. Slight tangent from what we were talking about in terms of just, lowballing. But I think that the CFO is king at the moment still, especially for bigger companies. Once you've already passed Series A. Like, I want to see as much as I can of the market for most people. Not everybody. Like, some clients we've got want to see 5 to 10 and done, which is music to our ears. But there's a lot of companies that are like, we like this person. Can we see more? I think that's I know you've told me that you've heard that a bit, and I think we've seen it a lot in general. And the statistics tell us that, there's more interviewing happening for a hire this year, which is obviously just buyer's mindset. Like, I'm the hiring team, I'm the hiring manager, I'm the buyer. I get to say what I want to see. And, typically we say, right, 10 is a good number. 10 profiles, interview 6, 7, 8 of them, make a hire. But I know there's instances where that number has gone up to like 20 plus, maybe even more for some hiring executives, where they just happy to keep shopping and keep shopping. So that's why I think the biggest problem's been this year, but I think it's changing and improving. But I think you are right, like getting the top folks engaged, it is not easy. And never, I guess in a good market everyone will take a call and they'll make the decision afterwards. But maybe now they're like they're still in batten down the hatches mode after the last year or two. Cool. Do you think like companies are well positioned to make hires as the hiring market's improving this year? Like, do you see clients in a good spot to get it done?
I think with laying off some of their talent team, I don't think they're in a good spot to be hiring. But in regards to the actual market not getting better, but the more products being released from some clients, then on the other hand, yes, they are in a good spot. So going back to my first point, like if you don't have a talent team, that's when you can use OutScout to support your C-suite as an extension to your business as we look after the hiring. But on the other side, if you have a talent team, we can add on to that. So for some of the tricky roles that you have. So are they in a good spot? Yes, no, it's case by case, I suppose.
Yeah. I think it really depends how deep people cut. Like I definitely know there's hiring companies out there that made cuts to their TA team and they're still hanging on to a lot of people they don't want to lay off and they're not all busy. Like I know that for a fact, especially enterprise. Like a lot of startups, you got one or say you're a Series A company, right? You might not even have a head of talent. You probably shouldn't. You might have a recruiter or it's someone's job to coordinate, and that's probably the best way. And I think you're absolutely right. Like somebody like us bolting on is a good scaling tool or stage-gated access to full-blown TA. And then even our enterprise customers who have, global recruiting teams, and then we're another bolt-on. But there's lots of companies who I think are like enterprise. They've got people there they probably should cut again, and they just don't want to, whether it's because they just like the team and they want to keep them there. But either way, I think people are not particularly well placed to make hires because they've cut not just the heads in their team, but they've also cut tools. They've cut, no one's talking about employer branding anymore, are they? Really? No one's talking about diversity initiatives like they were 2 years ago. They might say they want a diverse team, but there's not as many legitimate initiatives. So I think you're right. I think the headcount cutting, and then there's this hesitance to rehire recruiters. Some are we lost business recently to a company that had chief people officer, director of talent, and then they just rehired a contractor in who they'd let go, who was still available 6 months after. So they opted to bring them back rather than signing a subscription with us. But I still think hiring at one person doesn't make you capable, right? That person needs tools and systems and data and a whole stack of things that they probably don't have. So I don't know. I think
I'd agree with that in regards to the, bringing on a contractor. If you brought on a talent partner from us, then one of them's focused on go-to-market, one of them's focusing on R&D, one of them's focusing on G&A, where you bring in a contract recruiter or another recruiter, you've got 5 or 6 to 10 different roles across 3 different functions where partners are specialized. So you're going to make the hire quicker and faster, and you're going to fill that seat. Or if you give the contractor some work, where's the incentivized? So where are they getting incentivized to make these placements? They've got a job. Yeah. That's great, but who knows how long it's going to take them.
I didn't actually I have thought about that in the past, but in terms of this conversation, I hadn't even really thought about that because, they're probably on an hourly or daily or monthly rate, right? And they're just, if a hire happens to slip from one month to the next, then it's not terrible news for them, is it? If they get extended. So, whereas we're incentivized to make the hires happen as quickly as a client is. So, I think there's probably some other conversation we should have, and there's some drawing, some sketching, and some data work to go into what's the stage size of the business and what is the absolute optimal tech hiring infrastructure. And so everyone knows, I prefer it when a client has a head of TA or talent acquisition specialist, because things get done in a better way, and there's just that conduit between all the team and us, and if it works well, it makes everybody's job much more straightforward. So I'm not here saying that we don't want them to have TA. We definitely do, but I do still think there's lots of companies out there with too many, and then they're hoping that the hiring bounces back and everyone's busy again, and then it's all sunshine, rainbows. But yeah, I mean, look, just going into some of the numbers here. So in May, the US economy added 272,000 jobs versus 185 forecasted, exceeded the 12-month average gain. A number of job openings increased going into Q2 from Q1, and within the tech market, apparently the number of tech jobs is close to surpassing those from 2023. So if you look at listings and postings and net new jobs, 2020 is improving beyond 2023 year to date. So that's good news. What do you think? Do you think that's the case? Do you think from I know last year when you joined OutScout, you were scouring the world and looking at companies and careers boards and, company announcements around funding and where that funding was being allocated. Do you feel like it's significantly improved upon last year?
Well, 100%. The H2 of 23, if you're, as you mentioned, scouring the World Wide Web and how you're looking on there, and the roles were very scarce. Yes. Talking to clients and talking to VCs or private equity firms, there were very limited roles being released out there in the market. And then, stats don't lie most of the time. So this year's been increased. We've already touched on it. There's been account executives, there's been product marketers within go-to-market. There's more product managers as well. So there's more products being released from companies. There's been more funding, as we've seen as well in the earlier stage companies getting more seed and Series A. So yeah, the job market has really increased. And even the first, couple of weeks of Q3 and H2 now, we've seen a flurry of people out there wanting to hire. And if you go on to your job market boards and LinkedIn, you see there's a lot of hiring managers wanting to hire as well. So yeah, long-winded answer, but yes, there's been a huge increase in roles this year.
Yeah. Let's look at some of the key trends that we're seeing from this year. So I'd say the one thing that was obvious to me was last year, product management hiring sort of fell off a cliff a little bit, as a key trend. I'm sure in pockets there was hyperactivity, but in general, product management hiring really slowed down. And and I put design with that, product and design. Would you say that's the case?
Did it decline last year?
When it was down, it's come back up. It seems to pop back up a bit.
Oh, it's definitely come back up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely come back up this year.
Yeah, I think if we're talking about hiring trends, especially within startup space, not necessarily enterprise, but what would you say are some of the trends that you've observed this year, things that are clearly just different now and that's just the way it is?
I think the startup ecosystem, there's more and more roles being released as an IC position with the future to be a manager. There's someone who can wear many hats is still the phrase that they're looking for, but you go back to what we said earlier, good education, good tenure, and making sure that when they hit the ground running, they can do the job. All the cliche ones, but that's the kind of trends we're seeing, I think, is wanting good people, but who can offer where to wear many hats, so to speak.
Yeah, what's the term that we found? Unbossing, and just in general, slightly more senior folks, less junior folks, working harder, doing more and more hands-on. I think, there's obviously in the enterprise space, big tech, there's the strategic boardroom discussions that are happening and the retreats and all that good stuff, I'm sure. But I actually spoke to somebody recently, friend of a friend, who was at a Series C company in technology, won't say what area, but they were between 50 and 100 million of ARR, very aggressive goals to get way past 100, get to the 150. So they actually essentially had to double it in a year. They're nowhere near, and apparently the culture has just totally fallen off. The culture that was there was very good, very intellectual, very collegial, very supportive, and it's now just become whatever it takes to grow and get a deal done, and the founders are under stress, and that's coming through. So I think they had a lot of hierarchy built in, which is now because they thought they were going to hit that number. So they have the CRO, they had the VPs, they had the directors, the managers, and the team. The couple of people I know were they felt so far removed from deals because they were in this hierarchy that had been built. Arguably, that's why it was starting to fail, because no one really knew what was going on. Everyone was jumping into the deal and overwhelming it potentially. So I think obviously too much pressure adjusts culture, and the whole phrase of show me the incentive and I'll show you the behavior. When they changed the incentive hugely, the goal was too big, that the market wasn't quite ready for it. And I believe now they're making a bunch of layoffs in July. So from, December, everything, but a year ago, everything was amazing there, and now it's not. So yeah, I think, just everyone's got to be careful still, haven't they? It's improving, but it doesn't mean it's, you get a nice fresh raise in. It doesn't mean that everything's going to land for you, because it's still hiccups in the market and stuff. I don't know if you've obviously seen all kinds of good and bad, haven't you, since being in the US and Bay Area, Seattle?
I have indeed. I think you touch base on culture there as well. Culture, it should be if not top two things that you look for when you're moving to a new company or a career. Obviously, you've got to put money in your back pocket and feed the family, but culture is huge. And if it's not dialed in, then, some of your top tier candidates, which I mentioned earlier, the ones that are hard to find, they're not just going to jump into a new role. Culture really needs to look after families. It needs to look after your back pocket. It needs to, if it's 100% remote role, it needs to be regular check-ins. You need to go out there and work hard and make sure that your managers are allowing you to do that. But yeah, I think it all goes down to culture. You just mentioned it, it needs to be 100% before people move to a different role. I know it was slightly tangent off what you said, but...
No, not really. I mean, it doesn't get talked about that much when, and it's hard to... I think the whole notion of culture is, people want to work where they want to work. They want flexibility. They want remote. They want hybrid. Some probably want to be in every day or most days, but most people don't. So then building and scaling a culture is therefore really quite difficult for a lot of companies. So, I think it's an interesting one. I think it's more about personally, tone of voice, communication style, having very clear goals, but being supportive of those and being human. The company I talk about probably just decided, hey, if we crack a few eggs to make an omelette because we want to double our ARR, and I think it's bitten them in the arse. So I think being aggressive with goals is one thing, but then being assertive with execution rather than aggressive in terms of how people are treated is probably how you should embrace scaling a culture. It definitely is difficult. It takes time, energy, money to create a good culture. And I think OutScout's gone through different waves of what that means, but I think now we've got it down. But I think there's a lot of companies out there that, some people will argue it should just be an organic thing that happens. But I think if you're growing, you have to be thoughtful of what it is. And then obviously, as you said, when people are coming in to interview you, don't assume they don't care about culture, because they definitely will. We know that from what people tell us. They get a read on the team and the vibe, don't they? Whatever vibe means, but they get a sense of, how will I feel working here, and will I get looked after? Will I feel like part of the team, or will I be a last in, first out, which is obviously what everyone's been very scared of recently. Let's move on a little. I think we can come back to culture another time as a whole conversation. I think we should probably, talk to some people leaders about that. But we're just past halfway. We're in the middle of the summer. It's July. What do you think is likely going to happen for the rest of the year with the tech hiring market, or the tech market in general, but hiring specifically?
Big hiring predictions from myself. I think we're going to see an increase, obviously, in AI. Fintech, I'm going to put my name out there and say that fintech's going to be an increase in the next 6 to 12 month. There's going to be a lot of hiring in there.
Why is that?
Got secret squirrels on the ground. I think there's... I think finance had a bad rap over the last couple of years, and it seems to be the hot take. If you look at Charles Schwab and Robinhood and the increase of the shares available, I think fintech's going to make a move in the next 12 months. What's your thoughts, Gareth? What do you think is going to happen?
I think annoyingly the summer will be slow. I hope I'm wrong, but I think the summer will be slow. I think the election is going to be front of everyone's mind. The election hasn't made a difference in the UK. Like, that all happened very smoothly, and it was it's almost a non-event for what it really was. Like, it's almost anticlimactic. But the US, I think people are sitting and watching. I think the market will slow down a little through the summer. I think it will pick up again through the end of the year. And I think Q1 of 2025 will get really busy. So it's not necessarily like, I think, like, deal volume's been pretty good this year. M&A's been pretty solid. I was actually looking at that earlier. There's like lots of deals. Some I hadn't even seen, actually. So I'm going to do this every month to make sure I'm on top of things. But like HashiCorp acquired by IBM, not quite done yet, but 7.7 billion or something. Juniper Networks was acquired for 13 billion. Darktrace for 5.5 billion. X.AI acquired for 6. So there's been like lots of very chunky M&A deals. Now, a lot of those numbers are still smaller than what some of the firms were, if they've gone public and then they've been bought out of being public, because actually they went public, it went up and it started creeping down. So it's just like, okay, let's make money before this potentially goes too far south. But I think more M&A, I think a steady year, probably a summer slowdown, nothing outrageously exciting. But I think you're right. I think if there are going to be pockets of sort of hyperactivity, I think it'll be the boring stuff. So the office of the CFO, like AI for compliance, AI for accounting. And then I think the bit that I am more interested in is like AI for healthcare. I think that's where I can see money being thrown, because obviously the generative AI pottiness that was Q1 and Q2 of this year, like, or the last 12 months really, it is like just noise. Now it needs to go into these sort of super pockets of pragmatic use. And I think healthcare technology is, there's a lot going on there. I think there'll be a lot more. I still think this unbossing thing is here to stay. Like, if AI is going to do its job, then leaders will be able to do more without more people, right? So I don't see orgs going from this to this again. So I think just more of the same for the rest of the year. Hopefully no big shocks. And say that will be it really. We'll carry on this, everyone. We'll carry on doing this. I think we'll do once a quarter as a market roundup, state of the market, pulse of the market. We'll probably go into a bit more detail on some of the people moves and the company, like some of the M&A, because I think I read a lot of stuff. I know you do, and I still miss a lot of stuff. So I think if we can help give people like some of the sort of more interesting snapshots of the market, that would be worthwhile. So if anyone's got any ideas or suggestions or critiques, let us know. But thanks very much. Cheers, Dan.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks very much. It was good.